My name is
Jenny.
David.
Lila.
Laurel.
Jen. Lisa.
Dino.
Ari.
Kyle.
I was a
Jehovah's Witness.
Jehovah's Witness.
FLDS.
In the Amish church.
The chosen people.
I was a Scientologist.
I grew up a Mooney, a member of the Unification Church.
2x2.
And I am
Shunned.
shunned.
Sean.
Shunned.
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 My name is Chelynn. I am 39 years old. I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I am shunned.
All right, Chelynn. So how'd you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
I was born into it.
Okay. So it's all you ever knew.
All I ever knew. Yes.
Do you know how many generations it goes back? Is there an origin story or anything?
My grandmother, my mom's mom, found it. I believe she was trying to leave my grandfather at the time. He was dealing on drugs. And I think the witnesses probably came to her door. Divine intervention. And she had 4 kids at the time, didn't know one was pregnant with me, and found the witnesses and ended up leaving. I know he tried studying and coming in. I know he's a witness now, my grandfather. So he eventually came in, but I know there was back and forth of him trying to work it out probably in the marriage and then not. So she ended up leaving, I think with 3 kids at the time. Or no, there's 2. I don't know. My aunt is a lot older than the other ones. And then my uncle left at 16, didn't want anything to do with it. And then my mom, who's the 3rd oldest, she was pregnant with me at 15. And then her youngest sister, Mo, was obviously in tow also. So that's how that happened. My dad's side, they were on the East Coast at the time, making their way through Vegas to the Bay Area. And not really sure how they became witnesses. But it started with my dad's parents also with them. And they're on that side, they are recovering alcoholics since I've known them. So.
Well, there you go. So in
It's
both
not
cases,
lost.
right, there's some vulnerability there, whether it's family matters or alcoholism. And here come Jehovah's Witnesses, and they've got a message that sounds good. And next thing you know, people are studying.
There you go. Yeah. So my parents' baptism and graduation pictures, I'm in both of them. I was like 1 or 2. They had me. So, and it was interesting. They didn't have, I hear stories of what my parents went through after they had me, because they did get married. And they weren't baptized, my parents, when they had me. So they really couldn't do much as far as like reproving them or disciplining them. But they were marked back then because it was the 80s. So they had the whole marking thing. So I heard stories, and it's sad that I get, teen pregnancy is not always a good thing, or, it's looked down on for the most part. But my parents kind of had a, rough awakening coming into the witnesses, it sounds like, and being judged very quickly for having a kid. And, not being told to, yeah, you're married, but don't show that you're married. Don't hold hands. Don't sit by each other at meetings. Like it was awful, and it's kind of, and they're still in, and I'm just like, wow, you still let them treat you like, it's unfortunate. But.
So you're saying that even after they were married, they were discouraged from
holding hands when they were at meetings or like sitting by each other. Like it's interesting how they were treated.
Because they were marked. Interesting. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I guess the holding hands and things, I kind of see how they get there in their deranged way, but the sitting next to each other, I mean,
you're married, you have a kid. Yeah, you're married, you have a kid. Like so
okay.
I guess it was more to discourage from other people, like, oh, see, it could work out for them, so why not? I don't know. I mean,
yeah. We can't have marked people doing well here.
Yeah,
might encourage other people to do similar things.
Exactly.
How old were they when they had you? Were they really young?
16 and 18.
Oh, so
my mom was 16, my dad was 18.
Wow, so they were young. Gotcha. So you're born into this thing. I mean, your parents are kids at that point too,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
really.
It's, yeah, it's not lost on me that if my grandmother was studying and kind of coming in at the time and my parents were going through all that, then yeah, that's the
mhm.
help you get. That's your village right there. So
Um, so you then are born into it. Do you remember being a little kid? How you felt, what was the worldview or how you saw the world around you growing up in this thing? I mean, were you did you feel special because you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses, or were you, terrified? Were you looking down on the world outside, or terrified of Armageddon, or how did you feel starting to learn about these things?
I just wanted to fit in.
Mm,
I remember being at school and I don't know, people were nice. So it was hard for me to like understand that they didn't want what was best for me, like the witnesses were saying. And I liked school. I kind of, I like learning. I'm naturally curious. So school was kind of a fun thing, but then, you can't be a part of the holiday celebrations and birthdays. So I was, it was always paused, walk Shay outside, not to be a part of it. And then, so you just want to feel like you belong somewhere. And like now having a kid, I see it so differently now. Like I remember coming home, like they had fun, they had this party, but yet being told it was bad. And so it just confused the fuck out of me, really, because yeah, no one seemed happy inside where I was. And then when I'd go out to school, people seemed happy. So it was really like, okay, they're gonna die. Like, yeah, you just I couldn't fathom and understand it. It was just really like, and I get that some people get that sense of you want to save everyone, but it was like, no, I want to go out and have fun, and I still get that. Like my ex would kind of make fun of me a little bit, like your FOMO showing. And I'm like, that is a dagger to hear that because I know it. I own that I miss out on stuff or that I have missed out on so much. And so I think as I got older and I saw that like Armageddon wasn't coming, it was like, well, let's use the world to my advantage until it blows up, And so I wanted to use it to the full before, and I kind of felt like, oh, we have a get out of jail free card. We can just go and repent to the older brothers in the back room and say that you're, like it started this coping mechanism of like just a bad of do stuff, go and telling myself to get to feel better about it and to be saved. And yeah, so it didn't scare me. The world didn't scare me. It intrigued me more, I guess. But not in a bad way where I wanted to just like squander and be a part of everything. But
you wanted to be happy,
mm-hmm,
or you
yeah.
wanted to at least see what was out there.
And I definitely had a fear of man very early on about telling them I was a witness, saying I was. And I made the mistake of getting baptized pretty early, pretty young. So that also just kind of started things real quick for me too, getting in trouble. So yeah, the world didn't seem scary. People did try to pit it as being scary, but I don't know. I had fun. The concerts I'd go to when I'd sneak out, things I'd go to, I had fun doing that stuff. So
Were you a person who was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go have my fun. I realize there may be consequences for this in the end. Maybe I won't make it through Armageddon, but I gotta do what I gotta do." I mean, were you kind
a
of
little bit.
resigned in some way?
Yeah. I don't think I ever thought I was going to make it through Armageddon.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
So I
did.
kind of, yeah, might as well do what I want kind of a thing. Um, I never had that desire to like pioneer or do anything more in the truth ever. So I just like, also too with that, like being a woman, you're like, wow, I'm never going to find a husband that is worth, because that's like your worth is finding a husband but also
You could
too,
possibly get an identity through a man.
and get an identity. And
That's about it.
Yeah. And also too, getting married didn't seem like something I wanted to do. Having kids didn't seem like something I wanted to do. So I just felt like I'm stuck here. How do I, but yeah.
Like making the most of a bad situation.
Trying to. So.
Gotcha. So let's talk about we'll get to like your baptism and such. How old were you when you were baptized?
14.
14. Okay, yeah. I was about to say.
I know there's younger. I remember seeing 9-year-olds and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, but 14 was still young. Even my dad to this day will say, which is shocking that he says it, we shouldn't have let you get baptized that young. And I always will go back and be like, why didn't you stop it? So, and I think
why does his organization encourage it?
That too. Yeah. So
they encourage it.
They do. Yeah.
If you're not baptized by, let's say, 16, then maybe you shouldn't be allowed to drive a car. You can't handle that kind of responsibility. Clearly, that's newer direction. Maybe you can't. If you can't handle that responsibility, well, as far as dedicating your life to Jehovah, then you probably shouldn't be able to drive a car. So, they put a lot of pressure on kids to get baptized, and this is Jehovah speaking, right?
Yeah.
This is what's, is being taught at the meetings. This is what is being handed down through Holy Spirit is you're being taught kids need to get baptized.
Yeah. And I didn't get it a lot from my family per se, but I got it externally from other people, from friends of, like I got baptized with 3 other girls that we all hung out with together. So it felt like we were all just doing it to like get that praise and like, yeah, it was, I found a picture actually after my baptism and I just looks like, I'm like, none of the pictures of me when I was a witness at conventions or assemblies look like I'm happy at all. You're just, yeah, it's great to see people, but.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. It wasn't the magical experience. I mean, I kind of refer to baptism. It's almost like the one birthday you get as a Jehovah's Witness, because it's the one time you can do something that is universally praised and where people kind of celebrate you at least for a day, right? And but you get one chance. That's it, and it's downhill after that. So, you got that one shot though, to feel good and to feel like, and you also know at 14, right? If you don't do it soon, people are going to start giving you the side eye.
I'm trying to think if I remembered.
Good association.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I never got really into any trouble until after I got baptized. So I think to me, I was like, oh, it'll be like a protection. I won't get in trouble. And then.
Well, that's what they tell you.
Yeah. And so
isn't that funny though? We all kind of thought it was a protection because that's what we were all told.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's why we all had that same experience, because they told all of us that.
It's same
really
thing.
A protection for them from us leaving or finding any other things that we want in life. We're so scared of the consequences.
I know.
Now I'm baptized.
Yeah. Oof. But I still kept it. Yeah, I remember in high school, because I'm still friends with 3 other girls I went to high school with still now. And they knew I was a witness. They weren't religious at all then. But I'm grateful now. And I told them this last week. I told them I was doing the podcast too. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, you guys, I get sad because I don't have like long-term friends. And I said, but I just got reminded, like, we all went to high school and met in high school. And we may not be close friends how I used to think close friends were. And that's that witness clouded it with that. And because she mentioned, because she invited me to her 40th birthday. And she's like, my 3 closest friends in the world. And I just I literally started bawling. And she's like, oh my God, what did I say? And I was like, I just didn't think you viewed me as a close friend. And so it's nice, having those connections and not, because I don't know. It's just nice. I lost my train of thought.
It goes back, sometimes these are the only roots we have. As going
Yeah.
back, I can't go back to, well, I've got some ex-JWs that I knew going back to that time of my life,
Yeah.
which is nice to have, but not
Yeah, I
everybody
do.
even has that.
I mean, I fortunately do. I have, wow, there's 6 of us, including myself, in a group text that we all grew up in the same, the same congregation, actually. If not the sister congregation, or if not, we're in the same circuit. So we all knew each other. So when I was the last one to get out, and they were all like, what took you so long? You, out of all of us, we thought you had been the first. And it kind of was like, wow, okay. Like, but
it is interesting how that goes. It's also interesting what you said about friends and how Jehovah's Witnesses have a very skewed view of friendship. It's
yeah,
a very possessive, transactional thing. And it's almost like you're in the cult of each other. You're enmeshed. You're way too close. No ability to break away or to be an individual at all.
I catch myself like with friends, like, I don't know their parents. I've never met their parents or their aunt or their uncle or their grandma. But I'm like, that's the norm for me as a witness, was knowing all of those people in that family. So it's nice not to like be so enmeshed. It's also very weird to not be at the same time because you're so used to it. And like, even now, like with the split going on with my ex, I'm like, we're still under the same house. And I'm like, I don't have to tell him anything, but I feel like I have to because I'm so like used to it. But so having that boundary and putting that there when you're not used to doing that with boundaries in general.
Well, like you said, you were used to telling the men in the congregation everything that you did, right?
Oh my God.
You were taught, right? Nothing is your own. Everything is for public consumption to some degree, and not in a healthy way at all.
No.
So let's talk about some of the different aspects of life growing up. So let's look at your family growing up. So what was the temperature of the room in your household? Were things at home? And were you one of those were you the family that was constantly studying and like very, super preemie, very into this thing?
I want to say we tried to have family study every week. I don't know what happened with it. I dreaded it. I hated it, obviously. So I don't know if maybe I would start stuff. Like my memories are very hazy from a lot of that period, but we did not have, we tried, my dad tried, and I think my mom and I would just not, I don't know. It was, my mom I'm kind of shocked she's a witness. She's very gossipy, but I guess that also goes hand in hand with it. But I remember when my dad became an elder and I looked at her and I was like, you're going to have to just shut your mouth as a woman. And she looked at me like, what? And I'm like, you gossip and talk about people so much. Like I couldn't even be around it. I hated being around her because she would just talk shit. And I'm like, you don't even know. I'm like, stop spreading lies about
That's
people.
the witness hobby.
No, I know. And I hated it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're going to have to be an example as an elder's wife. I'm like, are you ready for that? Like her and I mean, yeah, I don't know if my mom and I were too alike when I was growing up, or we were too close in age to be a mother and daughter. But it was tumultuous. There was a lot of arguing, a lot of, and I was getting into trouble literally a month or 2 after I got baptized with boys, and, you shouldn't be doing that. And my parents would argue because they didn't agree on how to discipline me and that. And they were also going through their own stuff. They got divorced when I was in kindergarten or around there.
Oh, wow.
My dad cheated. I found that out later after they got remarried to each other when I was in 4th grade. So now looking back, like they had their own stuff with their relationship that they were trying to work out on top of having me. When my parents were divorced, my dad was disfellowshipped. And so I did not see him at all. So there was, classic case of like, we all should have been in like individual therapy and family therapy, and they should have been in couples therapy to figure out how to join all of this again, because it's like, or how to work it out. So that way my dad did, I don't know. It was just weird. So, when they got remarried, it was very, I remember people like saying like, oh, aren't you so happy your parents are getting back together? And it just seemed odd to me. Like, who is this person? I've seen him once, like, that I can remember. They say he's my dad. Like, it just awkward, I guess. Like, no one, I don't remember if my parents actually sat me down and talked about like, we're getting back together. We're getting, I don't remember any of that. I've never asked either, but I remember just specifically asking like, why did you guys break up then just to get back together? Like, that's stupid. And my mom told me why. And I was just like, okay, well, cool. You guys worked it out. And I thought that was a really great thing. And now seeing them now, how they are, they seem like they have like a really good relationship. Like, they've talking with them. I mean, we only talk once a week, so they can see Declan, but it seems like they have a really, like, they've figured it out. I don't know. So but it was a lot of screaming. Like I said, my parents were storming through my room, always like looking through my stuff, contraband, making sure I didn't have anything I wasn't supposed to. And I never really had anything I wasn't supposed to. I always wrote in journals. And so that was my big thing was, my mom would find it, read it, and then I would get handed over to the elders to discuss what I did.
No boundaries.
No boundaries. And then just finding out later, like, what you were doing, with just being intimate, being physical with other people, it's normal, and being told it's not, and I'm bad and this. So it's just, that is something I'm currently trying to undo with therapy too, having that like stigma, that like mental block with it sometimes.
There's a lot of shame and repression among Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. And then also everything that would get brought to the elders would get brought to my family, my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle. We were all in the same congregation. I am an only child. So it was like spotlight on Shay. We got to fix Shay. We got to make sure she's not doing what she's doing still. So everyone knew. My grandmother knew about a party I went to where I was doing keg stands. And I like, that is not something your grandma should be finding out about you, but, I agreed, but it's, yeah. So it really sucked. Oh, and then my dad's parents would find out too, and his side of the family. So it was all like, we all need to get on the same page when it comes to Shay and fixing her. And then in the summers when school was out, I would get like shipped up to my grandparents who were the recovering addicts and alcoholics to kind of try to AA my life into, I don't know, to keep it straight and narrow. Cause I did start drinking at like 13, 14. So. Yeah.
You started drinking at 13, 14 and you were sent to your grandparents who struggled with those substances?
Mm-hmm. They thought if I was around them who weren't doing it, I would stop doing it. And
So were your parents drinking?
Oh, they drank.
So I was gonna say, like, why don't your parents be the example for you instead of shipping you off? Or don't they not drink? And then
as I got older, I saw things. Obviously, I see my mom having like her 2 glasses every night, and my dad with his whiskey, and I guess
can I ask a question? How did it feel to when you're like? Because I'm noticing now in a couple places, it's all about like, let's fix Shay. But like, okay, so Shay's drinking, but people in your family seem to have an issue with that. Shay's going out with boys at a young age or whatever, but like your parents had you at 18 and 16. So like,
I think they were trying really hard to like, I don't know. It was interesting.
Make sure you didn't go down that path.
Making sure I didn't go down that path of having a kid early. Yes. And I don't know what it was, but something about the way my mother would say, like, don't have kids until you're ready, made me just not want to have them at all. And so again, being the person I am, I would say I'm pretty resourceful and pretty smart. I found out how to get birth control on my own. Like, okay, I'm going to go do stuff. I'm going to be safe at least. My parents aren't going to help me. And they just want me to not do it, which is not going to happen, because we're curious people and things happen and whatever. And you mix alcohol with whatever you're doing and things are going to happen. But yeah, it just like I said, I was just doing my thing, being a typical kid, and it caused a lot of chaos.
When she says not to have a kid until you're ready, is she not kind of talking about you?
She's talking about her. Definitely her. I can.
Well, no,
her
right, having you, but I'm saying that it's her having you. I guess what I was trying to get at with that is like, because there was a lot of shame and there were a lot of problems around you being conceived, right? And your parents being in trouble and everything. Do you ever think that had any impact on your relationship? Were you ever seen a certain way? Like a woman who has a childbirth in traumatic circumstances may sometimes contribute to something like postpartum or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like with your parents being subjected to such cruel treatment, really, around your conception and coming into the world, do you think it had any effects on your all's relationship?
Definitely.
Hmm.
And I'm only gonna, this is gonna be a little deep. Because when I first had Declan, I remember expressing regret. Like, why did we do this? Why did I make this, so it can change how you look at your kid.
Sure.
And I think it was hard for my parents to maybe love me when I was quote unquote doing bad things in their eyes. I definitely felt the conditional, unconditional very quickly with that. But then I also would hear stories that my grandmother would say about who she was as a person before she became a witness, and thinking, oh, well, people can change, so I can change. But I never stopped to ask myself if there's something I want to do. Do I want to change? Do I like myself? Like, I'm actually asking that for the first time right now in my life, like with things. And yeah, I definitely think it caused, people knew who I was just by my parents having me at such a young age. It was almost like an example kind of thing of like what not to do. And I would say, oh, I'm Jim and Donna's daughter. Oh, they're the teenage parents. Like it was known. So
it's like a label you can't shake inside the organization.
You can't shake any label they put on you.
No,
and that's
they
the thing
forgiveness, but nah.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I hate, is that it's all their opinions of what they of it. It's not actual facts too, but yeah, I think changed. Like, I don't really think I know my parents as people, as human beings. I don't think they know me as a human being, because you have that umbrella of being a witness first.
It's your identity.
It's your identity. They tell you to put on the new personality. Like, whoever you are, do not, like, I remember reading like certain scriptures pop up and I'm like, they basically tell you to disown yourself. Like, I'm like, what were we thinking? Like, I
tell you to disown yourself.
And like, yeah, so it's yeah.
Yeah, that way you can become who they want you to be.
But I did also see a lot of, like, being in, the Silicon Valley. My uncle, that my aunt married, he got vetted for when he was in college. Yeah, he went to a 4-year college. My uncle, who was also a witness. But that's another thing. I'm like, you went to a 4-year college. How come? And yet you're up here talking against higher education. Mm-hmm. And I would spit that back to him every single time I talked to him about, like, and ultimately they ended up paying for nursing school for me. But I just, with them, the way he'd be like, well, you should I'm all pioneer. Like, you are? You didn't pioneer ever. You went to school. he didn't even go to Bethel. Like I would literally like just challenge him like that. Like, yeah, I know I shouldn't probably be doing this as a woman and you're my elder, but like, look at what you did and what you're telling people that they shouldn't do. And so I definitely saw the hypocrisy, the double standards very early on. And I was the one that was like, what about this? What about that? How come you're, like, don't come pointing at me if you can't look at yourself also.
Sounds like from an early age, while you may have taken on some of the shame of different things or believe certain things, you were a person that was able to see through some things or to put things together as you got, more acquainted with what more exposure to these various things.
Yeah.
You started to put it together, and it sounds like you're pretty outspoken too.
I was to a degree, but I knew with the right people or only certain people. But and yeah, I wish I had, I don't know. Well, my quote unquote plan to get out didn't really happen, or it kind of backfired when I got married. So
okay, we'll get there. Like a lot of people have plans that backfire or don't work out.
Yeah. Or not even a plan, but just, it'll give me some separation. And yeah.
Okay. So, can I ask, so did you and your family have, I always do like to, I think most Jehovah's Witness families are struggling to some degree. Again, I mean, you've got parents oftentimes who aren't the healthiest. That's why they're in a cult, right? I mean, healthy people really aren't in cults. So there's something there that's not. There's something there that there's some pain, some hurt there. Like you talked about the withdrawal of love or affection if you make a mistake, right? And that's certainly not healthy. That's not healthy attachments or anything.
Because I see it. Side note, I oddly see it with Declan's dad and him a little bit. Like when Declan has his little tantrum moments, or like he's getting he's like this morning, he's like, I'm not engaging in this, and just like walked away from him. And I'm like, he's 2.5. He might not even know how to express what he wants yet, or he's getting there. And it sucks me right back into, if I'm not acting a certain way, there's no love. And it pisses me off because and it's only happened really, I've noticed it since the split. So I don't know if he's just doing it on purpose or what, but like then Declan looked at me and I'm like, you can come over here with mama. And he comes over and I'm just like, he comes in and I'm like, I love you. Like the first thing I say out of my mouth, like after, and yeah, it's just, I will do everything in my power to make sure that that little boy never questions if his mom still loves him, even though he did a bad thing. He's not a bad person. He just did something bad. He made a mistake. And I hope one day I have enough courage to let him know the mistakes I've made that got me to being his mom, because ultimately all those steps, good or bad in the past, ultimately got me to where I am today. And so, but it breaks my heart. And I get, to some extent, it's also teaching him that he doesn't need to be behaving that way for us to engage with him. So I get there's a fine line of like enabling it and also trying to teach him, like you can't always act this way to get what you want. But I don't know. It's just, I see it and it's just interesting. And then I also noticed it in the relationship in the past. Like,
it's a reflection of your inner child, right? And what happened to you to some degree. And sadly, we as human beings, we do tend to repeat patterns at times as we're trying to grow and figure things out ourselves. And everyone's doing their best. We as human beings can be messy though. For sure. So did you all, can I ask, so I do like to give opportunity as well. Like, were there some, do you have any like specifically fond memories or like things that you guys used to do together? Did you go, I don't know, were you a family that played games, went places? Did you just have a show you liked to watch together? Was there, what did you all bond over? Or was it just Jehovah's Witness stuff?
Yeah, I mean, my mom and I think now I probably would get along with her a little bit more now, being older and maybe being a mom and just understanding her a little bit differently. My dad and I had a lot of the same interests. He liked the science world like I did, the medical world. So we would watch autopsies on HBO late at night, and like TLC had like plastic surgeries on that we'd watch. Like we were really into that stuff. And my dad was really into, he raced Volkswagens for a while with a boss of his that also was an elder and a witness. And he had 3 sons. So I would learn how to rebuild Volkswagen Bug engines, hanging out with them, you know, and I grew up around a lot of boys, which has been kind of like my downfall, I guess, now being older, because I'm definitely more of a guy's girl. I gravitate more towards men just because there's no drama. There's, you know, but I'm learning to find the women too that are also no drama. But yeah, we would go up and do the racing things. My dad would, I'd hang out. We'd go camping every summer with some other families. Trying to think what else we would do. Camping was a big one. My uncle ended up selling his company to SanDisk and bought a lake house. Yeah, they're billionaires. Which was another funny thing. Everyone's like, why are you leaving the cult? Like, you totally you're set for life. I'm like, yeah, if I stayed in the cult, I'd be set for life without money. But like, they don't have kids. So everyone kind of assumed it would go to me because I took care of their house when they're gone, or the animals when they're gone, and all that. But
I wouldn't sell my soul for a billion.
It comes with a price. So, so they ended up buying a house in Carmel by the beach, and they would trade with one of his colleagues who also co-owned the company with him at a lake house. So we, just go to big houses and hang out with family and close friends. And basically anything not related to witnesses, I had fun with, but it was far and few between because, I did go and serve where the need was great one time in Wyoming. That was really fun. I learned how to shoot guns and did a lot of target practice with that.
I did not expect, hey, I went on a special Jehovah's Witness excursion and learned how to shoot guns. That was not what I thought was going to come out of your mouth.
So fun.
Wow.
And yeah, two brothers that were on that trip. I think they're out now. Also, they're not witnesses anymore, and we chat and stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. After high school, I went to Europe for a little bit, Greece, all with witnesses. So you still, but
good times.
I did have some fun times. Yes, I did have fun times.
Sporadic.
I did try to sprinkle that in when I started working at 16. I was with like concerts. I love going to concerts, love live music. And that I'd go a lot by myself just because I knew that if whoever I brought along with me was an accomplice to whatever I was doing. So I was smart there. I'll go hang out with non-witnesses and do my thing. And that way no one can be an accomplice and tell on me. I don't know.
So
there were fun times. Yeah. And then I turned 16, got a work permit, got a car, got a job. And
okay. Were you raised in public school? I know you mentioned that to some degree. Were you in public school your entire school
public
career?
School my entire school career. And I went to school with other witnesses. So I was the social butterfly. So I was going all over the place, hanging out with all of the different people. I did get, this is funny. This is a random story. I got in trouble for kissing a boy at school. And I found out who it was. And now he's married and has a kid of his own and he's out, but he's like, yeah, I told on you. That was me. I was like, okay. And I knew he had the biggest crush on me for the longest time. I'm all, you did it out of fucking spite, didn't you? Because you can but it's just, yeah. But
The things that we did as Jehovah's
the
Witnesses.
things you do because you think you're going to look better, or like you're going to end up in Armageddon because you told on someone. But yeah, I was not a sly person. I cannot keep things a secret. That was not me. Like, so, but
So did you have a lot of friends at school? I mean, you said talk about being a social butterfly.
yeah, I would say I had a lot of people that I was acquainted with. Obviously you can't call them friends then, or you can't hang out with them after school or whatever, but I was in the GATE program from 3rd grade on. So I was in a higher, like, what is it called? Gifted and talented education. And so I was with the same group of people through like junior high, and then high school, we all got mixed together. And yeah, I had friends in classes that I talked to, and my parents didn't get home right away after school. So I could actually hang out with kids from school after. And we did live right across the street. So my house became kind of the place kids would go to before school and after, because my parents were pretty much gone like an hour before I had to get up for school and like till later. So I was kind of on my own to get ready for school and stuff. Yeah, my dad, I think my and I started ditching early on, obviously, school, and my mom would call me at home because she knew I didn't go to school. And my dad would come home on his lunch to make sure I was at school. Yeah, I probably would have thrived on a homeschool situation where I could get what I wanted done and then go and have fun. But I probably would have been stuck pioneering if I did that. So, yeah, I weirdly liked school. I was good at it. I was in like college prep classes. I was like, even my friend Melissa, she's like, how are you like buzzed all the time in school and in my classes getting B's? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm
B is for buzzed.
B is for buzz. Yeah. So, but I mean, high school was fun, but it was also tumultuous because again, I always felt like I'm just doing what I want to do. And it's like, who is it harming?
And you're also drinking at that age. I mean,
I was drinking a lot. It was
sound like you were the happiest.
No, it was, I got into crystal meth. And
in high school?
In high school, that very, very few people know about this. Well, everyone else is going to know about it now. But yeah, that was my first drug that I tried, was crystal meth. And I think it was more because it didn't make me feel so tired. I always felt drained, like just mentally exhausted. And so a girl was like, hey, I got this stuff. It wakes you up. And I'm like, cool. And I'm not sure how long I did it for, but it was only, we went to school. She lived in San Jose, but her mom worked in Gilroy. So she would bring it, and that was maybe a year. I don't know. And then the guy that I was really into at the time was a big pothead. So I would smoke pot at night to help me go to sleep. So it was just a whole, like, let's do this to wake up. Let's do this to fall asleep. In between, it was the liquor. It got to a point where I would bring like a coffee mug to school, and they'd be like, oh, what is it today? Like, is it really coffee, or is it like my classmates knew? But yeah, I graduated. That's all I got to say.
Well, for a witness kid, that's all you got to do anyway. Nobody cares what your grades are or anything usually. What about at the Kingdom Hall? Did you have friends there? Were you accepted at the congregational level? If you'd like some extra content, if you'd like to learn more about our guests today, maybe even have an opportunity to connect further with them, you can do so by joining the Backroom tier at patreon.com/shunned.
I was having my parents doing pretty well. My aunt and uncle, he was always an elder in the congregation as well. My grandmother, pioneer. My aunt, pioneer. My mom eventually became a pioneer. So yeah, there was a lot of like, not pressure, but like, oh, all the women are pioneers in her family. The men are elders and ministerial servants. So I think they were just kind of waiting for me to like kind of like turn everything around and like become that witness. But yeah, I had friends. There was one, she was also an only child. And so we kind of clung together at like 13, 14. She did not get baptized. She got baptized, I think, when she was 18 or 17, 18. I don't know. But only really because she ended up marrying a brother. So, but her and I were friends. There's a few girls my age in the hall, and we hung out. And then there was a point during our high school careers that we all got in trouble. And I think I ended up coming out with more truthful stuff than everyone else. So it made me more bad person. And that's when parents started telling their kids not to hang out with me, telling the parents, no, she can't hang out with her. Yeah, that was really sad. My friend now that I hang out and speak to, it was cute. We went to a Smashing Pumpkins concert last year. No, year before, 2023. And we have been trying to go to a concert since we were like 13 or 14 together. Her mom never let her hang out with me because of the rumors she heard. Or maybe they weren't rumors. Who knows what she heard? But yeah. So we were all leaning on each other for like like girls would in a girls group, but it turned out one turned on us, and then it like blew up everything. And yeah, so I lost trust in, like I said, my parents early on, going through my stuff, reading things. More my mom. My dad never. He really kept like his distance. And then yeah, friends betraying me in that way too. So the trust with people is very limited with me.
Sure.
And
it's not a good environment to build trust.
I haven't journaled since. I have a new journal to start this year, and I still have that apprehension, that hesitation, even though I know I really don't care who reads it now. But it's still like that. I don't know. It's weird. I can't describe it, but it's
it's going to make it difficult to be vulnerable again in certain ways.
Yeah.
Doing a good job here so far, I think. Being pretty open about some things. Congratulations. So when we go back, so we're talking a lot about the people and the relationships around the witnesses. Did you believe it? Were you excited about the doctrine at all? Did you like to give talks or go preaching or anything? Were you into, on any level, the actual activities of being one of Jehovah's Witnesses and the beliefs that thereof?
Obviously, the belief of everyone being perfect is like, oh, that sounds really awesome, because but then now I like think back, I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to be perfect. Like,
What's perfect mean?
Exactly, that too. And
what does that mean?
It was, but I never believed it. I was the skeptic who would be like, what if we challenged him and didn't go out in service? Like the scripture says, he can make the rocks preach for him. Why can't we just do that and see if I literally was that person, like, let's challenge it. But that's why, like, going out in service was definitely, I hated it. Did not want to push what I didn't believe on someone. Even if I did believe it, I wouldn't want to push it on someone. Like, even now, like, there's like even makeup products. People ask me, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a good one. Like, but I'm like, I'm not going to push it on you. Try it for yourself. Like, so I guess I'm trying to like be my own person by also letting people be their own selves too. Like, I like it personally. For me, in my experience, it's great, but it might not be for you. And so I hated service, hated it, would do anything to get out of it. I would actually do informal witnessing at 7 a.m. rather than go knock on doors at 9. And hated it.
Did you give talks?
I gave talks, demonstrations. I was awfully good at that. I'm good at improv. I'm good at that. Like, I was a natural on stage. I was in a drama. Talks, all that, I could easily.
What drama were you in?
Oh man, I was like 7. I played someone's kid. Yeah. So I like just walked on stage and walked off, but it was at a big like convention. Um, yeah, so there was high hopes for me. I feel like, like just trying to push me in that direction. And oh, she wants to be a nurse and get in the medical field. We can send her off to Bethel when she's done. Like there was talks about that. Like, and I guess it was just nice being like needed and wanted, or like, oh, she can do this for that, so it was nice. But now looking back, I'm like, they never asked what I wanted to do, or I never asked myself what I wanted to do. And yeah. And
yeah, there's a difference between we can send her off to Bethel with these skills, and does she actually want to go to Bethel with these skills?
Yeah, right.
Or does she even want to, what does she want to do with these skills if she chooses to pursue that, right?
So,
and letting people be who they are.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, yeah, hated service. I think that was like the glorious like appeal to other religions for me sometimes. Like, well, they don't have to go out and service. How come we have to? Like, can I just go to church one day a week? Like it was, and I remember asking a lot of questions to other kids when I heard they go to church. Like, what's it like? Like, but yeah, it wasn't.
Well, if you didn't like going out and telling people these beliefs that you didn't believe,
yeah,
were you okay with it at the Kingdom Hall, commenting and giving talks and things like that? Like, did you
I was
feel
not
okay doing that?
I don't, I think at the moment I wasn't really thinking about it. It was just go through the motions and
just do what you have to do to get by.
Kind of, yeah. Do what I got to do to get by. I remember when I first got, or let's see, I was dating him at the time, my husband. I was dating him. And that conversation, I think I had not turned in a field service report for 1 month. Or I was filling it out, but like not honestly, obviously. And then I finally did it 1 month. Like, I'm going to put 0. That's actually what I did. Just because, whatever, I don't know, being honest
And they're done that. I get that.
And it got brought up. My dad was like, so how can you put 0? Well, I didn't go out. And he's like, but you said you were. And I said, yeah, I know. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I was already dating my husband for a while. So we were talking about getting married and all this. So I was just like, I don't like, this is not, it started for me. Like, I don't have to do this if I don't want to, but yeah. So I had a point and I forgot it, but,
oh, we were talking about, giving talks and things when you.
Oh yeah. Honestly, none of that really bothered me. Like, just because I think I got the praise of like, oh, you're so great at it. And that's, doing presentations in school helped with that. Like, I was always the first kid that was like, I'll do that speech first, get it over with. I had no problem being in front of people like that. And that also turned into, as I got older, like, oh, she's cocky and into herself. But no, I'm just confident being on stage because I've had to do it since I was 4 years old. So I've had to read out loud. I've had to do these things, so hearing other people get nervous, like with public speaking, I'm like, why is that weird for you? Like, but I would say I take that away as a positive. Like, doing all those helped me have the presence I have now, being confident in stuff, because I get that a lot with work. I have in the past, and
Let's say you also bring certain elements to the table that used that opportunity, or it fit well with who you are, because other people were giving talks for 40 years and never got any better, or were giving talks and throwing up every time they had to give a talk because they couldn't do it.
And that was my thing too. That was my thing. If people are that nervous with it, why should they have to go through that?
Oh, I know.
And
terrible.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't mind it, but it was something. Yeah, I didn't really, it wasn't really a big thing for me. It was always service. I hated service. That was my one thing. I commented, but I'd never really felt the need to. I would read probably more scripture than anything, but it,
So you were doing what you had to do to get by, but then you
yeah,
said a second ago that you were dating and you turned in a 0. So did you feel at that point like you no longer had to do what you needed? Was there a shift at some point where
there
you
was,
didn't
I
feel
mean,
like you
kind
needed to
of,
do it?
I mean, I guess I just more wanted to let them know that this isn't something I want to do forever in my life, but I wasn't really sure how to say it. I guess just being honest with people, knowing that you're going to hurt them. That's something I'm working on also right now because, you know, it's always been it's been a big thing for me, you know, that fear of man, but then it's like also that kind of translated into the fear of telling your own closest people what you really feel about something, you know, and it goes against what they, you know, believe. And so even, I mean, even when I moved out the second time from my parents, when I finally decided to leave, I couldn't even really tell them I was leaving yet, like, or like done. Like we didn't really have that discussion until this last year. And I've been physically out since like 2017. So even for me, still as an adult being a mom, I'm still like, oh my gosh, how do I tell, you know, my parents this?
Well, and isn't it that framing of how do I tell somebody something where
That's
I'm
going to
going to
hurt them.
hurt them instead
Yeah.
of how do I, I be myself, and then if they're hurt, that's on them. That's because of their belief systems, right?
Yeah.
It's the old or what I always throw out there is, it's not the fault of the gay person that the homophobe is offended by their presence.
It's the
That's on
person.
the homophobe. They have to
Mhm.
own their own thoughts and feelings around that, or the racist, or whatever, right? And our
Yeah.
families have a particular set of values that they've adopted. And, if I don't live that way, why is it that everybody else, for the most part, is okay with me living however I want? But you are the ones with the problems. Well, that's because you adopted a stringent belief system
Mhm.
that allows for no other.
Yeah.
You don't, you tolerate no rival. You are intolerant of anyone else doing anything that they want to do, and that's a you problem. That's not a me problem.
Yeah.
That's your intolerance.
Yep. And
Showing.
that's taken me a while to learn that.
Oh,
So,
it's tough. Yeah.
and I think for my parents to learn, you know, because I think they have to understand that I am my own person, even though I
For
am
sure.
part of them
Well,
physically,
again, back to
DNA
that
wise.
that possessive nature of a lot of witness relationships, and witness parents tend to see us as an extension of them. And we
Yeah.
reflect upon them, and especially you got a dad who's an elder, right? If you mess up by their standards in a kingdom hall that they've decided on, that's their choice. Then if you mess up, then he gets in trouble, or he loses his
Yeah.
his
His
status,
of his and his
which
status.
is
Yeah.
part of the manipulation
Hmm.
to keep you in line,
If you want
by
to stay
tying
home.
it to someone else.
Yeah.
Going back, we've been talking a lot about these different phases of your life. Is there are there any seminal moments or anything that we missed in your teenage years as we're going up to this point in time where, you've got a boyfriend and you're making these decisions and starting to say, hey, this
So
isn't
that
for
so
me?
that actually started in my early 20s. That story.
Okay.
My teenage years, my teenage years, and like through high school, I was actually interested in another brother
Mm,
that I was in the same grade with in high school. He liked the feelings were mutual. Like we actually talked about like, yeah, I have feelings for you. We both knew. I don't think he wasn't baptized yet. I was. And so that was the first dilemma. Like, I'm baptized and you're not. And then we knew like, oh, we can't date because we're not past the bloom of youth and all that. But we pretty much probably would have dated after high school if he had lived. So
mm.
that was my first experience of death with someone who I had feelings for. I don't know. I would probably call it love. I mean, we talked all the time outside of school. We hung out. It sucked that he didn't feel he could tell me what he was going through. I heard it through the grapevine. But there was a point where you saw me, you saw him, you saw him, you saw me. We were that connected. I only have 2 pictures of him and me. And that was also my first experience with cancer, because he had testicular cancer, and it spread to the point that he didn't make it. And
wow, very young too.
yeah, I don't know. It pisses me off too, because he didn't feel comfortable enough to go to his parents about something he found. And then by the time they got to it, it was too late. And I don't think they were in a Spanish congregation, so I know that kind of culture deals with things differently. So I'm not sure exactly everything that he went through as far as treatment, or if he did go through treatment, like, so. And then you have so a lot, I don't know a lot of things about his treatment, but I remember, like, I got called a day or 2 before he died, because he wanted to see me, and I hadn't seen him for like a year, I think. But yeah, that was something I definitely did not deal with and process in the moment. You kind of, like, as a witness, you just kind of go on to the next thing, you move forward. And obviously their belief is he'll get resurrected in the new world. And going through that, knowing I didn't believe it, it kind of started like, okay, this is not something I want to be. I was 18, 19 going through that, and kind of being told, like, yeah, you miss the person, but then it's like these other people. Death is a weird thing. Like,
well, especially with the witnesses, they don't grieve,
yeah,
because they don't
grieve.
It as real.
They don't.
They live in denial of the cancer or their feelings or whatever. Denial is the JW way. Take your own feelings, push them down, move forward, right? And so there's a lot of denial, and then when someone dies, it's like, well, why are you grieving? They're going to be resurrected. Don't you believe?
Yeah. So that was a hard one, especially for a friend of mine who's also out now. The same guy. We were all 3 really close friends, and I don't remember much of the funeral, but I just remember a tap on my shoulder, and it was him, and we turned around and just hugged each other, like, so tight. Like, it was like, and that was the last time I saw him too, until years later.
But there's no help given, right? A young man dies. No one's like, hey, you were close to him. Are you okay?
My parents tried
counseling, or
my dad tried. My dad always really.
I did. Good.
I have to say, my dad and I started forming a closer connection when it came to, like, mental health and making sure things, like, I was okay with stuff. My aunt, his sister, started doing cocaine when she was a teenager. So he has been through the drug addict sibling growing up in it. My dad, before his dad got sober, was physically abusive with my father. So when it came to my dad, I think, in understanding addiction, or when things came out with me, he was always the first that's like, what's the underlying issue? What's really going on here? So my dad was the one I could kind of talk to a little bit more about things at that moment, I felt like, because he wouldn't immediately go to the whole Jehovah's Witness spiel of, just pray to Jehovah, he'll help you. And that praying. But yeah, so it's definitely, no one asking how you're doing, no one processing it, no one, but yeah, it's something that my dad, I think, actually witnessed. A year after that, my dad's grandfather passed away, and he was closest with him. He wasn't a witness, and my dad had a little breakdown with that. I think realized, but
the feelings are real. The Jehovah's Witnesses, their belief system is just kind of It'll be okay.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
So that was my first brush with someone close to me in that aspect of like a significant other, so to speak, I would
Sure.
say,
No,
you
that's
know.
tough.
And then kind of just started hanging out with different witnesses. I started hanging out more in Santa Cruz, where I live now, with witnesses that were living there, and met boys I liked, and one in particular, and that wasn't going through. Then I started a new job, and that's where I met who I got married to eventually, was at this new job I took in healthcare, my first health job in healthcare.
Oh, okay. So was this after high school?
After high school, yeah.
So you graduated, you did go through
Graduated.
some
I was
schooling.
working at Starbucks at the time. And then I was talking with a girl at work, and she was like, we should go apply. I don't know what got us on this conversation at work one day of applying to Kaiser. And we both went after work that day up to where the first Kaiser we saw went to the HR, filled out some applications. And then I got a call back like a week or two later for an interview. And got in, and I figured, well, I want to do the whole nursing thing. And so cool, let's see where this takes me. And yeah, met my husband there. So
So you now you met him there. So does this mean he's not necessarily one of Jehovah's Witnesses?
wasn't a witness. Didn't even know he liked me. I worked there for almost 2 months, and he had trained me on a few things for a few weeks. And then I worked an overnight shift, and one of the guys was like, oh, you're the one that Adonis likes. And I'm like, who's that? Like, I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know his name. And then like the following Monday, they put me back with him for my last week of training. And it was in a chart room. So I was pulling charts for appointments for the next day. They wanted you up to a certain speed an hour pulling charts. And he was the fastest one. So at the end of your training, they put you with him to make sure like you're up to speed on things. And they were closing the chart room down, transitioning to electronic healthcare records. So people were dwindling out of the chart room. So I was temporary with being able to find something permanent in 6 months. So I was like nose down, head down. Like I was 19, 20, making almost like $30 an hour at the time. Like and so they're like, oh, this is so-and-so. And I was like, oh, you're like, I don't even remember our first interactions. It was just so like, I did not even think, you just don't think of things, but we just started hanging out in groups and with work people. And my schedule was a little bit off as far as not having normal work hours. So that kind of helped. I had to start going to other meetings. I had to like make up meetings elsewhere, so it kind of started the schedule doesn't work well with my life anymore kind of a thing. But yeah, so we started dating. And like a year later, we decided we wanted to get married. And that's kind of when I told my parents, like, oh yeah, I'm engaged. Like I didn't even tell them I was seeing someone. It was like.
So how did they take I'm engaged to someone who's not one of Jehovah's Witnesses?
I'm trying to think. There wasn't really much opposition. I think they were like, well,
were they just cool with it? Like, oh, you found somebody.
well, not really like that, but it was just kind of like, well, we can't tell you to do what, we can't make you do something. And he was okay with me still being a witness. That was the thing. We like that's the funny thing with like I'm coming out of my second relationship in my life, which is very funny for me, but looking back, not comparing, I'm like, we actually sat and talked. Like, I'm still going to be a witness. I was already, I think, disfellowshipped by that time in the middle of us dating because I had sex with him. So I was like, well, I got to, like, stupid little good JW I am. I got to go confess. And so I was disfellowshipped. And then that was when I kind of told him more about stuff. And I was like, well, I want to come back. He's okay if I am a witness. Like we actually sat and talked about this, like getting married. I'm like, if we get married, what does this look like? And which was, now I look back and I'm like, that's actually was kind of a healthy relationship in a way, because we sat and discussed, is this going to work out? And he was okay with me being a witness and getting it back and all that. He's like, that's your family. Your family's there. Your friends are there. He's like, of course I'd support you. So
I got 2 questions about that.
Go ahead.
What
ahead.
did he think of the whole disfellowshipping thing? I mean, did he,
He,
was it hard for him to watch you be treated that way?
I really wasn't talking with my family as much. I'm trying to think. I don't think I felt that lonely by it at the time.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It was weird. I can't really, I'm trying to remember and I can't quite remember, but like, I remember he would not meet my family until I could be around them.
Well, yeah.
And so
Okay.
that, I was like, well, that's really, and so he understood. His mom she's still alive. So she is religious. So he just kind of was like, well, you have your religion. I'll let you do your thing. Cause his mom, his dad died forever ago, but here's the difference. He accepted me for who I was
Yeah.
at that moment.
Yep.
That's all that it was. And
So he
that, I
accepted you
think,
for who you were, but
that
it
is
does
my
sound like
definition
he
of a
was
relationship.
frustrated at them for their treatment to some degree because he wasn't willing to meet with them unless
Yeah,
they
he
were
didn't seem too upset. He just said, I'm not going to do this until
no,
you can be
it didn't
with
feel
me.
right.
And I said, okay. And so he wasn't the type of person to raise his voice, to get angry like that.
Mhm.
You could tell he was upset, but he was still able to like keep a cool demeanor about him.
Sure.
And so, but he was also not religious. So he said, don't. And I said, I will never bring it on you ever. Like, that's not my thing. His mom, on the other hand, would try to do everything in her power. That's what he hated. He hated his mom doing that. Like, he got to a point where he's like, I don't want to go to church anymore. And she would try to spin, well, you live here. And he's like, no. Especially now, he ended up staying at the house with his mom when his older and younger brother took off, when they were all old enough to leave, but he decided to stay and hang out with his mom and like help out with the house and stuff since the dad had died. And he's like, no, I'm paying part of the mortgage here. You're not going to tell me what to do, kind of a thing, So he was really like, religion's not for me. So we had a mutual understanding. We had respect about it. We had the acceptance also. And it just worked. Weirdly, it worked.
So, question number 2, how did your parents take it when you were disfellowshipped? How did that go down? When you actually did get disfellowshipped, did they continue, talking to you as
They continued talking to
daughter?
me. I was still at home for a little
Oh, you
bit.
were? Okay.
I was still at home for a little bit. They let me stay home until we got married. And then
Did your
I moved
dad
in with
lose
him.
his responsibilities?
I don't think he was doing anything then. I think at that point in time, he stepped down himself to help with like whatever I was going through.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so then we got married, moved in with him and his mom at the time. We were going to like maybe wait a year, 6 months to a year, and then get our own place. So yeah, my parents ended up going to the wedding. They got a lot of shit for that.
Oh, I bet.
Then when I got reinstated, they had a talking with me saying that they wanted to do some kind of punishment for me, saying that I got married in a church. And I was like, oh, okay, I heard about this. And so I like whipped out my wedding album. I'm like, where do you see a church in these pictures?
Wait, you were disfellowshipped. You got married in a church, and when
I did not get married in
you
a
didn't
church.
get
I got
married in a
married on the
church.
beach.
Okay.
I got married on the beach.
But they
And
thought, let's just say they thought you did.
No,
You were gonna
they
get
asked me, they
reinstated.
said they wanted me to have some kind of reproof still when I got reinstated because I got married in a church. And I
Okay.
said, I didn't get married in a church. And they're like, they literally were like, you don't need to lie. I'm like, I'm not. And I pulled up my pictures because they were digital. And I said,
Okay.
where's the church? This is who officiated the marriage. It was non-denominational for a reason. And I was like, and honestly, why are we having this conversation? I'm like, I'm already married. This is done. I'm reinstated. Go ahead and do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel better. I'm like, and they were trying to get my parents in trouble too after they went to the wedding when I was still disfellowship because they were also trying to spew it was in a church. And I'm like, it was just ridiculous. Like I'm showing you pictures here that it was not, and you're still coming at me saying it was. Like, yeah.
That's so petty. You got married. You did that. You fulfilled the
So petty.
end of the bargain, and they still wanted to get come after you for something.
Yeah. So
got to make sure you feel more pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
wow.
Whatever. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what issues my parents had going to my wedding. I don't care. That was their decision to come.
Sure.
I mean, as a courtesy, I told them when and where it was because I really didn't think they were going to go. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, good for them for, I mean, it's a low bar going to your daughter's wedding. That's kind of like what you're supposed to do. This is, but good for them for going. I mean, that's what that's what you're supposed to do when you have kids, is support them and go to their
It was definitely just a weird vibe, obviously, like having your parents there. They don't necessarily condone what you're doing. And then you have all these questions and like whispers of like, how come her dad's here and didn't give her away? And yeah, so it was a tall order for me to even have a wedding once they said they were going to come, because I just like, it was just a lot to deal with. Like it would have been easier
because it
to
brings
elope.
its own energy.
Yeah. So, but I got a wedding. I got out on the beach. It was honestly weirdly perfect for me for not ever having thought of what I do for a wedding. Because all I knew is I'm not getting married in a Kingdom Hall. I'm not marrying a brother ever. I'm not I'm not doing any of this, but like, what does it look like then? So, but
when the time came, when the time was right, you knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
You did that.
It was simple. The food was great. People still rave about the food to this day. I have a friend that still brings it up. And yeah.
I'm glad it was a beautiful moment. So you get married, you're reinstated. I don't know if they reproved you further or not. I guess they didn't.
No, they tried to, but they didn't. Yeah, I was reinstated and kind of had my cake and ate it too, married the guy I wanted, got the family and friends I wanted back. And that actually was one of the questions the elders gave me when I was trying to come back, was how do you come back to Jehovah once you've gotten everything you wanted?
What?
Right? Oh,
What?
it was of all the committee meetings I've had, and there have been so many, I wish I would have like counted or like tried to remember, but I remember two distinct questions, and that was one of them. The second one was my last one that I ever had when they disfellowshipped me. And they asked me what my biggest regret was. And it happened to be a father of someone I hung out with a lot, or I hung out with his daughters a lot, and his son. The son's out now. But he asked me, what is your biggest regret? And I looked him in the eye and I said, getting baptized. And I walked out that door. It was like, yeah.
But that question, how do you come back once you got everything you want? Well, you have everything, so what do we have to offer you? That's such a weird question.
Right?
I don't know what that means. What?
Yeah.
They often think you leave so that you can go have all the things you really want because you don't want this, right?
Yep, exactly.
Maybe he was hoping that you would say, well, I don't have my family. And then he could say, well,
now you do.
Or he could say, well, maybe you're not going to because you're not coming back for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's
Come
true.
back for Jehovah. Maybe it's a trap question. I don't know. How did you answer that, or did you?
I don't even know how I answered it. I think I just said my actions will prove myself or something. Like,
okay.
That's another thing too, is you can talk all the talk you want in that cult, but like your actions are going to show. And yeah, it floored me too. But I was just, and yeah. So reinstated. I don't think I was really reproved or anything or had restrictions, but I also did get reinstated into a new congregation. So I transferred congregations while I was disfellowshipped, which is tough. But also it was nice to have like just for people fresh eyes to see me kind of too. I had always grown up in that congregation I was in. So they saw all the mistakes I did, every little thing, and coming to a new congregation, didn't know me, didn't know who I was. All they had to go off of was I was married and disfellowshipped. So
How long had you been disfellowshipped and out for?
a year or two.
Okay.
Trying to think, I don't really quite remember. So yeah, I had to meet with the new elders in the new hall. Then they had to meet with the old elders, and I had to, all that stuff. So it took a while because I think the elders in Gilroy, obviously my hometown, we've known her past, we've known her, thing, and so it took a little bit longer than I thought it should have, but whatever. So back in, made a bunch of new friends in this hall that were teetering on the edge, but you knew they had fun. It was a fun witness group, and it was wholesome, for what it could be. And so I had, and they accepted, they would come over, and there was two other sisters that we all hung out with that also had unbelieving husbands. So it was kind of oh, we're a part of a little club. We can get them all together. And so he would hang out with the witnesses, and we'd come over. We'd have, what would we do at our house? We started doing a brunch after Sunday meetings at our house. And he loves cooking. He loves barbecuing, all that stuff. So he would totally get in there and help. And he did not mind having them over. And I think also too, though, was and he expressed this later on, that my family always brought up the witness thing. He's but your friends don't. Your friends are here and they're just here to have a good time and enjoy each other's company. So, and I noticed that too. We did, they tried to be, I think, more respectful of the ones who weren't there or who weren't witnesses that were there. But a lot of them too had come into the truth later in life, or when they were out of high school. So they kind of had that little, not total pure to them, but so I don't know. It was a fun congregation to be in, for the time that I was in there. They helped me. I mean, Adonis got diagnosed with cancer a few years into our marriage. So they stepped up and helped. I had a friend that lived a mile from me in the congregation that would always cook dinners for us. We were in nursing school together too at the same time. So I had that also. Her husband dealt with a lot of mental health stuff. So we kind of clung to each other for that because we both had husbands that were ill in different ways. But she's she's still in the truth. She's still in the truth and has kids now and all that. But yeah, I think that was probably the first time I had fun being a witness, was when I was in that moment of because I felt like I had actual decent friends that were witnesses. And yet I still had, I don't know, it was kind of had the weird best of both worlds, being married to someone who wasn't a witness. I kind of got to hang out with his family a little bit and not have to be on, I guess, so. And maybe I thought in the back of my head I could eventually fade away and just be married to him and have his family and all that. But plans change, things change. So
is this the plans that you alluded to earlier that did not work out or did not come to fruition? Or
I guess, I don't really it would have been easier to just fade away and not just kind of walk away from it if he were still alive. I think the trajectory of it would have panned out that way. I'm not sure. I can't say. But him, I did see, he was sick for almost 5 years. So that was a good chunk of time. And so I did feel at some point that the witnesses did kind of forget about us, and they could have done a little bit more I guess, for support, but I had support. I had, his family helped as much as they could. His cousins, especially, would come over and help. And my family, my parents did. But yeah, I did see a bit of a shift when he got sick. Then I wasn't able to make meetings as much or be out in service because of that. And I was working, and I never got discouraged. They'd see me at meetings and they, glad. That was the difference too with that congregation. They were more positive than they were back at my home one. And it was, nice to see you today, glad to see you here. It was never, oh, we missed you at the last meeting, so it was always just a positive spin to it. But yeah, I started to see different things, I think, as he got progressively more sick and towards the end of his life, that this was not something I wanted to be a part of, because I also didn't, the whole death thing too, it came up again. And like, I'm not going to see him again. I don't believe in this. Like, I'm like, like it just kind of been more apparent, like, this is not for me. This is religion, cult, no. And, yeah, I don't know. He, passed away. And I wanted to get out on my own at that time, but I think my dad was too afraid to have me be alone. So I moved back in with them after Adonis died. And, yeah, my opiate addiction came out full blown at the time. He had a bunch of pain medication that I started kind of dabbling in over the last few years. He was sick, and became very apparent when I moved in after he died with my parents that I was using. And yeah, turned into another let's fix Shay.
Yeah, let's fix Shay. So it became apparent to your parents
that I had this.
They started noticing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They knew. I wasn't shy about things. I remember my parents picking me up to do the funeral arrangements. I got in the back seat and I was like, I took 2 Valium before you guys came. Like I had 0 fucks to give, I think, at that point with everything. And my mom's like, yeah, we can tell. Like, it's just, I like, it happened. It came out. That's how I coped. Or not coped, apparently, obviously, with that. But yeah, so.
Well, again, and also, denial is the way of the witness.
Yeah, and then being, just hearing, like, pray to Jehovah, he'll make you feel better, and you'll see him again in paradise. And it's just like, yeah. So I think I was just trying to think. He died February 2017. I was disfellowshipped October of that year.
For the addiction?
No, I don't even think I brought the addiction up in my committee meeting. It was for all the promiscuity.
Oh, after he passed?
Mm-hmm. I had the abortion also during that time. I was teetering. I remember talking with the brother I was into forever ago that was a witness. I went out and visited him because he wasn't doing so great. And we hung out for about a week or so, and we're talking about everything. And I actually think we were talking about maybe even like seeing if like him and I could work as a relationship, because we'd had a few year kind of fling, like, thing going on. And we're both at a point where we're like, yeah, we don't really want to be in the truth. Maybe we do. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. This guy here, can maybe help me. I don't know. I just have no idea what I was obviously looking for. But then we started talking about stuff, like going to the elders about everything, because him and I had gotten into some things when I was visiting him. And I said, well, I was like, I have one other thing that I've done that you don't know about that could definitely send me over the edge and get disfellowshipped again. And I told him what it was, the abortion. And he's like, well, it's up to you to tell him about that. So I ended up, I know I didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. And that was the dumbest thing too. But I told him about it, the elders. And I remember my dad coming home a couple days later. And I guess he had stepped down as an elder because he was an elder at the time. And he said, yeah, the brothers could have forgiven you for all the sex, but the minute you mentioned the abortion, it was over for you. I'm like, cool. So they would have rather me bring in a dope sick baby into this world, me being an addict, how I was like, no, like, I was like, I will stand by the one brain cell that was there when I was that deep in my addiction to say no to that. I did you and mom a favor. You would have been stuck with that kid if I had went through with it, or if I didn't go through with it. And that was years later. I told them this. I was like, but that's really what have happened. Me being the drug addict I was, and you being not necessarily enabling, but not also helping at the same time. I'm like, you would have gotten stuck with your grandchild.
Oh, and that grandchild would have been in a bad.
And I would have had to deal with possibly 3 guys to find out who the father was. Like, they didn't know how deep things were with me then, with what I was doing. So,
And what's sad is that, I mean, obviously, again, you're going through or avoiding going through at times so much grief, right?
yeah.
And running from, there's just so many feelings there and all of this stuff that you've been through.
Yeah. And there was a lot going through when he was sick too. He got diagnosed 2 months into nursing school. And that was like, we decided that I would stay in school. My family all knew, his mom knew. And then it came back later with some of his family that I was being selfish. How could I stay in school and not take care of him? And I can see it from their point of view, how it looks. But also I'm like, I literally went to school to take care of people, and I was able to take care of my husband at home. Like, that it,
Everybody's got opinions, but not everybody's living your life. So.
Exactly. And that's,
opinions are easy.
Yeah. So, yeah. Trying to think after that. Let's see. Disfellowshipped and
disfellowshipped in October of 17.
Yeah, 2017. Was working as a nurse. Can't even tell you what I was trying to do. I think just survive. Yeah.
Your dad, before we move on, your dad said, hey, they could have let the sex slide. It was the abortion, right? How were your parents understanding it all?
No, my mom, I mean, I'm not sure how understanding they were at the time. My mom, well, first, I remember at that committee meeting, I was given the opportunity to tell my parents myself about it, or they would tell them. And I'm like, you have no right to tell my parents that. Which was another, dumb thing. So anyways, I told them that night, and my mom broke down and cried and had to probably make me feel worse by saying this. I don't, but we almost aborted you. And in that moment, I kind of looked at her and I said, I wish you would have, because then I would be saved all this pain I have dealt with. Like honestly, when Adonis' stuff came up, when he got sick again, the first guy that I dealt with cancer and died came up because I didn't deal with it then. And so
you had a lot, I'm sure, that you were running from.
Yeah. And it just.
That statement, I've heard that before, where witness parent might say, I should have aborted you, and it's like, or almost did, or whatever, and it's like, well, you're about to, right? So often, you're about to shun me. I mean, my mom aborted me in a way at 38, right? Like, just kicked me to the curb at that point. And, that's when I'm an adult living human on this planet, right? We're not getting into when does life start and such.
Oh gosh.
There's no philosophical or scientific arguments to be made. I'm here. I'm a human being. I'm your son, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But no, that is kind of the conversation that ends up being had, and people, witnesses, a lot of times, if they find out that you don't want to be one anymore, you will see this change in them. It's like a switch is flipped, and they're like, it's almost like they're like, what is the most hurtful thing I could say? I'm gonna throw that at this person right now.
Yeah. And you know, it kind of just played more into the part, like, you don't really know what I've thought about. And my mom was like, and I'm like, I have it, I wouldn't say, like, you know, not unalive myself, but like not be where I was, be somewhere else, be part of a different family, be part of not this, you know, and yeah. So that wasn't even the worst part. My mom saying that, which is funny. Not funny, but sad, I guess. My best friend at the time, who I told her I was getting disfellowshipped, and she asked why. She has kids, so I, you know, thought she would be mature enough to handle it. So I told her, and the next day I wake up to a text message from her, and it was just shame, shame, shame. Like, you know better. How could you do that? You're a nurse, like all this. I mean, I found out later, I guess my dad took a few weeks off work because he kind of, quote unquote, was on suicide watch for me, because I slumped that low after her saying that.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And yeah, I just moved on from that. I don't know. I just, you know, got his fellowship. Cool. Next thing. I had no desire to come back. I think we had like a circuit overseer visit around the time I was disfellowshipped. And I remember the circuit overseer came over to talk to me and was kind of trying to say, like, if you get your act together, like, really quickly, we can have this turned around real quick and get you back in. It was like it felt like the circuit overseer thought the elders made a mistake with their decision. And the circuit overseer was like, if you just hurry up and clean your act up, we can get you back in and get the support you need. And I had no desire. I just was like, I have zero desire. Like,
how about you just be loving from the beginning? We don't have to talk.
That, yeah, I was, you know, like I said, I was just popping. I was working and just
amazing how
still using. I was just
makes mistakes in there.
Yeah. So I was working, trying to, I don't know what I was doing. I was just using. Honestly, it was just a poorly functional nurse on pills and sleeping around, meeting, you know, whatever. That's also when I met the father of my son. In between all that, I was also starting a criminal life that I didn't know would catch up to me. So got in trouble with that. And that affected my nursing license. So I was dealing with that, also dealing with a new person in my life. And it came out once we moved in together that I had a pill problem. And it feels like, I want to say, things kind of took a turn then with everything. Granted, it's like my second relationship I've ever been in. So it's like, now reflecting back on it, I'm like, gosh, I feel like such a baby with relationships, but yeah, he tried to help, not probably in the best way. I did meet him and I was doing an outpatient program to try to get off of the pills. But that really wasn't working. My parents didn't want to put me in rehab because, of course, I'm with not witnesses, but I was going to NA meetings at the time to try to clean up, and it was a constant fight of everything. You know, like, they wanted me to get clean, but then it's like, I can't be with these people who are clean. I should be the only witnesses. But I'm like, well, witnesses drink, and like, it's a prescription pill problem. Like, come on. Like, it was a lot of fighting. And so I moved out for a few months and then moved in with the father of my son. And it came out quickly that I had a problem because I was getting it from places I should not have been getting it from. And then I got pregnant with Declan. And that kind of, it wasn't like a plan to stop, but obviously I stopped everything I was doing because I was pregnant and had him. That has been a big transition. And now his father and I are no longer together. It's not lost on me how we collided with the beginning of this relationship. And that's something that I didn't do intentionally, although that is something I'm feeling he feels. And so it's just, I feel like I'm the bad guy again right now, but I'm doing something that is putting myself first for once. And it's,
Well, I was going to say, you're running to all these different, through these different programs and such, and battling these addictions. But where have you ever had time to get away from, to understand, to heal from all the other stuff you have been through your whole life? It's not just about let's stop taking pills. It's why are we doing this in the first place? And there's so much pain there.
Yeah, I've never actually stopped to sit and discuss that. And that's where I think I'm at right now, at a point in my life. Because I've been running and just trying to like deal with life at the same time. But yeah, I definitely, and that's where I feel bad with the relationship that ended, because he was at a point where he was like, if you can't heal from all this stuff and be in the relationship, like maybe we should call it quits. And I, mishandled it. But yeah, I started thinking that like, yeah, I haven't been able to process any of this. And then when I got into my new therapy with doing EMDR, and the first exercise you do before it is going through all your negative events of your life, natural disasters. And I just started growing down. And I was like, holy crap, like it was intense. And also realizing, yeah, I have not actually processed most of this.
And those are the ones you can think of at that time. I think that as Jehovah's Witnesses, there's a lot of denial of the homes we grew up in, the environment we grew up in, and the effect that a lot of that had on us too.
Yeah. And I definitely saw that with certain books I read to like recognize your patterns that you do, or, like I said, my fear of man, making someone upset by what I believe or think or want to do. That's became apparent in the relationship I was in. I got to a point where I felt a certain way and I could not say how I felt. But also there was a lot of chaoticness there too, with my pill addiction coming out and him trying to help with it and me not thinking it was help. And then also I came to realization that the way I was brought up with the witnesses and being publicly reproved, privately reproved, disfellowshipped, all that time I had going through that, there was never a moment when I was that low and down where I had someone to help pick myself up or help me with it. So it was all on my own. So it's hard to recognize when someone genuinely cares about me and is trying to help. But yet I also started saying, well, the way you were helping wasn't really helping, in my opinion. So there's just a lot of just different conflicting like feelings and emotions, and especially when you're dealing with someone else in a relationship, like there's going to be that clash of me thinking, no, you weren't helping, but then yes, I was. And it was just like the way so it's.
Well, really, were you even ready for a relationship? I mean,
I go back to
all the shame. I mean, shame is addiction fuel. That's where a lot of addiction comes from. It's running from shame. And the life of a Jehovah's Witness, especially one who's not into it, it's shame at every turn. It's external shame, then it's internal shame because we take that on and we start doing it to ourselves, feeling responsible for everyone else. All of this stuff leads just to shame, 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 shame. And there are a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that have battled various addictions, because being one of Jehovah's Witnesses is an addiction, an active addiction to a philosophy or ideal that takes you away from or is escape from the real world. Just like death, right? And the way they escape from that through their resurrection belief. it's all designed to make you escape from the realities of this world, to look to one in the future that will fix it all magically. You don't have to think or feel today. Just do these 7 steps that will keep you busy 24/7, and you'll never be able to think or feel.
Yep.
And life will suddenly be magically made good by a God who will vanquish all of your enemies and just wipe out your bad memories without you ever having to do any work.
Yep. That's
It is an addiction. All Jehovah's Witnesses are in active addiction to this thing.
that is a good point. I never thought of it that way. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
it is.
and it is harder to
They'll
change
sacrifice their kids for it.
Yeah.
It becomes everything. They got to get a bump when they go on vacation and go to a meeting or out in service.
Ooh,
It's everything. It literally dominates their every waking thought and action.
that is a really good analogy. Yeah, because
It's constant.
you're numbing yourself. So if you're not,
Yes.
that's so that definitely I like that. But yeah, it's and that, like I said, that's where I feel I did not handle everything towards the end of this great or with grace because
Sure.
and I told him that, I didn't know how to tell you I was feeling a certain way or not feeling a certain way anymore, but it was, and we've talked about this, it definitely felt reminiscent of being in a cult. I couldn't feel like myself. I couldn't be myself, it felt like. And I don't know if I was just choosing to see that or it really, it is what it is. It's, but it's definitely, there's a weird, I cried the other day. I felt like I cried my weight in tears because of everything. Like I feel bad doing this, but then I'm like, but I'm being true and authentic to myself and it's only going to be good for me. And I just, like I said, it's my lack of experience being in relationships. And so.
Well, it's that, but it's also just, I think the primary relationship that we all have a lack of experience in is the relationship with self. None of
Yeah.
us were taught to do anything but to disown ourselves and lead ourselves about like slaves for
Yeah.
Jehovah. We
And
weren't taught to appreciate ourselves or to connect to ourselves or to know what we want and to go for it.
that is true. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, so how can we have healthy relationships? It's going to be hard. I mean, there is some truth to the nobody else can ever love you more than you love yourself to a degree, because we're not, even if they do love us, we're not going to accept that they do because we don't love ourselves. So
yeah,
you don't really mean that.
so
Can't accept it.
that's what I'm working on, I guess, now is trying to like that self-love and knowing that I can have that confidence that others see in me.
That is what I work with. Every person that I work with.
And to not feel cocky about it, to not feel
Ultimately
conceited,
comes down to, can you learn to love yourself? Because that's the one thing that they robbed all of us on. And if you love yourself well, you'll treat yourself well. You'll treat other people well. And you'll have boundaries and things like that. But no, we were all taught to hate ourselves, basically.
Yeah, that's really, and then being a woman in society just makes it
Sure.
feels harder, and
Lots of ways we are made to.
And then being ourselves. A mom, becoming a mother just adds another layer to it. I've noticed, or not even experience, but just like, oh, you're being selfish by doing this. And it's like, God dang it. Okay. And then you have that, so it's just kind of, it's really being okay with what you're doing and not letting that outside chatter get to you. And I've noticed the people who do support me and who do genuinely care for me will be here, and they have been here. And it's been great. It's oddly been great, but also scary at the same time, because I feel like I feel like I've just left another cult again. Like I have no one, but that's not the case. So,
well, but this is also, at the end of every episode, I like to ask people, what do you enjoy about your life since leaving and things like that. And, we're getting close to, I guess, that part of the story, but not every episode has a happy ending right when we're talking today, and that's
Yeah.
real. And I want that for people to understand that A, it is hard after you leave. Sometimes even what you think of is happiness is just relief from the present pain. It doesn't,
Yep.
it's not even true happiness because you still haven't learned who you are and what you want, so that you can self-actuate and live a life true to yourself. But life is going to have ups and downs, and I think that it's important to realize that life is always good and bad.
Hmm.
There are, I mean, I keep a journal every year of things that we've done, and then I go back at the end of the year and look at it. And last year we did a lot of awesome things, but man, we had in 1 month, I think we had $11,000 of unexpected expenses as
Oh God.
HVAC units died, and
Yeah.
my work laptop died, and just like everything fell apart financially over a month, and I had to catch up to all that and was able to handle it. But like, that's life. Life is good and bad.
Yeah.
And so when we leave, don't expect life to be rainbows and unicorn farts. It's not.
Mm-mm.
It's good.
No.
There's gonna be good, and you'll have the opportunity for that. But at first, you're leaving with no skills, no friends. You've been stunted your whole life. You got a lot to learn before it gets
Yeah.
good, probably.
Yeah. I would say I got a bit lucky in that aspect of leaving
Sure.
later in life, because I
Yeah,
did
that
build
can be better
some,
in ways.
yeah, I did build some relationships already outside the witness group. And yeah, I mean, but I still feel like the same, there's still parts of me that I think I am not equipped for this. Like, I'm not, like, what? Like, there's moments still,
Of
but
course.
um,
Well, how could you be? Where would you have gotten equipped? Where were your models? Where were
yeah.
those things, right? So all of us are starting. I mean, I left at 38, and the good
Oh, wow.
news about that is I had built certain things along the way.
Hmm.
But the bad news is I lost 38 years of my
That, yeah,
life, right?
I was like, I was 32, I'm 39 now. And
Sure.
so I was like, yeah, it's a short span of time I've been out, but it's, yeah, there's moments like just in this last relationship, I'm like, this is insane. I feel like I'm 18 going through this relationship right now. And I'm like, I'm almost 40. And but I feel like I'm in a better place to go through this and not get so like broken down about it, I guess, or I don't know. I can't really describe it, but yeah, I think more the sense for me when I left was I don't have to do the meetings. It basically came down to, I just didn't want to do any of it anymore. And I remember my mom saying, well, that isn't a good enough excuse. And I'm like, well, for me it is. Like, and so,
That says you. I mean, who are you to say
yeah.
what's a good
So
excuse?
I think that's the part I take away is that I'm actually doing what I want to do. And it's not that. And as far as anything else, it's kind of the bonus extra for me, because I'm still asking myself what I want to do, and
Well, most of us have just gone from one emergency to the next, so to speak, right?
yeah.
And
Yep.
it's survival. And until you get survival and stability down, you can't worry about thriving. And the things that we want in survival will be different from the things that we want once we start thriving.
Hmm.
And I think that one of the things that you have, I think that helps is a perspective. You're leaving this relationship, and that is its own mixed bag, but you've also lost relationships for worse reasons. And
Yeah. It's interesting because he did mention something about like his previous relationships, how he's like, they're all dead to me. And I kind of smirked a little bit and I was like, well, good thing I grew up with the whole shutting, because I know how that's going to feel like. And it's just another walk in the park for me. Like it's,
well, yeah, and that's also
it's,
kind of hurtful to say to someone who lost their last major relationship due to death. That's not the kindest thing to say.
no,
That's
but also I won't have to hear, when are you going to get over his death? when that comes around every year. So, because also we have another, it's, which that was really hurtful hearing that this last year,
Well, yes,
because
that is
it's,
not good.
everything I went through got me there to him and eventually to have our kid. So if I can't self-reflect on it when the time comes, and it's not like I think about it all year round. I mean, he has a death day. We have our anniversary, there's things that come up and I'm like, it's all right. So again, another reason why, maybe I wasn't emotionally ready to be in a relationship when I got into it with him. And
maybe he wasn't either.
And maybe he wasn't either. I think that's,
I mean,
so
I think there's a lot of people who get into relationships who mean well, they have good intentions, but maybe it's just not the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's on their own path of growth, hopefully. And whether you're together or not, hopefully everyone grows and everyone moves on to bigger and better things as they find themselves in new ways.
Yeah.
We learn things from our relationships, even the ones that don't go well.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you're feeling stuck in your life after cult involvement and can't find the life you want, leaving a cult is a new beginning on a path to healing, not some magical end itself that is healing. Relief from the immediate pain feels good at first, but that's not necessarily true happiness. The feelings of social awkwardness and isolation, lack of self-worth, perfectionism, patterns of being attracted to emotionally unavailable people, not even knowing who you are yourself, all of these things and more are lingering effects of that environment. Being in a cult isn't just following a doctrine, but it's following a culture, a way of life, a way of being that doesn't just go away because you stopped attending meetings. If you want to shortcut the path to healing instead of trying to figure it out on your own, maybe even work with me professionally in my cult recovery coaching practice, you can find opportunities to do that and also for other cool resources at my website, exjwhelp.com. That's exjwhelp.com. So then let's end it then on a note of what you do enjoy about your life today. Are there things that today you are being able to, I mean, I know that there's struggles, but also I know that, you are working towards things, and I know that you've got your son and such. So are there any things that you can point to that you do enjoy about the life of Chelynn today after all of this? Obviously, you've still got a lot of healing to do, but after all of this, what are some of the good?
I live by the beach.
Mm.
That was one thing I said I wanted to do always, was live by the beach, and now I do. And so, and just waking up every day and not having to like live for someone else. I don't have to get up on Saturday and go to like service, or Sunday and go to meetings, and I can take whatever job I want without having to look at the meeting schedule. And I think now just getting to enjoy life with whomever I want and doing whatever. Like, I'm back in school, and that's huge for me. Like I'm still like, how am I going to do this? Being single, being a single mom now, but it's only going to get me better into the spot I want to get into. I have another year to wait for my nursing license to petition for a hearing to get it reinstated. So I'm just trying to be the best version of myself I can to prove that I can be a better nurse than I was, because that's where I really want to kind of prove to myself that I can be a better person than I was. I was a damn good nurse then, but I always joke, I was a bit of a nurse Jackie back then too. And I'd like to see what the clean and sober Shay can do. I'm not completely, off everything, but I still and I'm in a better space. And I'm just open to seeing what's happening. I don't know. I just said there's no real plan for anything. Like,
No, they don't have to be a plan, but it sounds like opportunities. That's
opportunities.
the
And I guess I'm
thing.
just looking for opportunities. I work at a really awesome place right now that utilizes nurses, and it's a recovery facility. So I have my own little story about being in recovery. And that's been proven really great, being vulnerable in that kind of environment. You know, people, one guy came in, a new EMT, and he's like, "Are you the nurse turned custodian?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, my story's around." Like people have at work know that like I used to be a nurse and I lost it for whatever reason. And so the fact that they can come up to me or email me when they've heard the story, I'm like, "Hey, what happened? I want to hear from you." And it's nice that people would rather go to the horse's mouth kind of and hear it from them versus talking about it. And then also being praised for it, being praised for being as vulnerable as I have been with what I've gone through. My story will show someone that I have lied, cheated, stolen, all that stuff. And I have done that. I've done it to the closest people in my life. I have made amends also with those actions, with what I did, and making that amends with friends because, I was in a bad state and they recognize that too. So it's been nice to be able to kind of redeem myself, even though I know I don't have to. But it's nice that other people are seeing it and knowing that I was in a bad state. I did some bad things and I'm coming out of it now. And so I just hope I can portray that to the nursing board when the time comes to get it back. And until they say that I'm a danger to society, I will try to get it back until I can.
Well, Chelynn, redemption stories are the stories that everyone goes to the movies to see. Or redemption stories is the whole purpose of like Jesus, right? To redeem mankind. Like, in other words, humans love redemption and love seeing people who have made mistakes turn things around. And there's reasons that we all make mistakes too, and they're not in a vacuum, and we come from certain places. And I appreciate you telling your story and really fleshing out this story of all the things, right? Because it's not just about some of the things that, oh, look what Chelynn did. It's like, but look what Chelynn went through. I mean, you think that there might be reasons that people go down paths, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something we should understand about just everyone around us, that everybody's got a story and everybody's gone through some stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely, sorry, go ahead.
And maybe we should give them a chance to redeem themselves someday.
And I definitely, it's made me look at people differently.
Yeah.
Because I know people can look at me and probably think, oh, she's like, her life probably looks put together, and I've been that person where like, oh, they seem like their life's all put together and they have it, and then you start talking to them and then you realize no. And it's interesting. I was just out on Friday with some moms and we're talking about stuff, and there's no, I'm not shy about my age because I never get that I'm almost 40. They're like, no, you're like 20s. No, I love that. Thank you. But I'm almost 40 and I have been through some things. And it's interesting when I open up my mouth and start talking about it, or I say it nonchalantly, like, oh yeah, my late husband. And they're just like, wait, you were married? Like, so it's, you never know what someone's going through or has gone through that's still coming up for them. And that has made me have a little bit more empathy with people and to sympathize with stuff. And yeah, I want to, I don't know, but I've gotten a lot better response being vulnerable than keeping my mouth shut. So I guess I'll just keep opening up my mouth.
Congratulations on opening your mouth and being vulnerable today, then, because this is how we learn from one another, and now your story can help other people as well. So I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. You're welcome. So thanks for doing this. Honestly, like when I found the podcast, it was not divine intervention, but it was something close. So it was what I needed at the time.
Jehovah blesses me often. If If you want to tell your story on the podcast, buy merch, or get more information, go to shunnedpodcast.com.